Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Groyper Report. Tonight, we have some groundbreaking news to share with you.
Welcome to the Groyper Report. Introducing the most racist men alive. They are shutting it down as we speak. Welcome to the Groyper Report. Sexist. Racist. Phobic this, phobic that. Terrorizing women across the country. Telling them to wear clothes. Saying all women are mid. Minorities fear them. The president has them on speed dial.
Guess what, body? My choice.
Brought to you by Frog Aura Maxing. Brought to you by Frog. Giga Chat Central, yes, thank you for asking. They all must go. Welcome to the one and only. Defending the last white men on Earth. AtlasThugged and Josh Vander Nord. This is the Groyper Report.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of the Groyper Report, hosted by me, AtlasThugged. Forgive me, throwing myself off for no reason. AKA Aaron Shepard, whatever. I'm already messing it up. Joined by my co-host,
Josh Vander Nord, aka White Boy Normal Voice, aka Fake Real Jew, depending on the weather. You know, if Israel wins, I might be a real Jew.
That's funny. Yeah, we got to join the winning side, right? That's kind of the idea here. But we are the one network, not afraid to say Christ is King. I know it's been a minute since we've been back to the normal kind of, situation framing for the show. But happy to be back. It's been a long couple of weeks, I think. This will kind of be our first show really taking a look at in the middle of the Iran war. And I do think there's a lot of different themes we have from just this last week alone. So we'll kind of be hit or miss on some of the concepts. I just want to run through a couple of these themes here. The manipulated space of the right wing seemed to be a recurring theme of this week as well. And that goes from people like Jake Lang to Patrick Casey to Captive Dreamer to John Doyle. And all of these kind of like paid sentiment, manipulated sentiment. The big one I think that we're going to have a good bit of discussion about is that the mass deportations are over, and this idea and concept of thinking about this issue, immigration moving forward. We also have what we'll be doing. I'll be doing for sure. I don't know about Josh, but I'll be voting blue in 2026. And the idea will be to keep our options open in 28. We'll get further into that. I think there's a bit of more of a nuance to that. And I really like the idea. I guess number 4 would be, where is JD Vance? Anyone know? The next couple will be some smaller ones, but we're talking about just the general seething from people like Shabbos Kestenbaum, Laura Loomer, who we might not cover much at all today, but she's apparently doing a tour in India. For whatever reason, I don't know. She was getting attacked for her racism towards Indians at some big conference. And what's funny about it is the video that's circulating actually isn't even the original. It's like an edited one that makes her look even more like Jigsaw. It's actually kind of hilarious. Then if you haven't seen that, it's so funny.
I haven't. Jigsaw is crazy. I've not even seen that comparison before.
Dude, I don't even know how they did it. And the thing is, too, is like, what's the standard, right? Like, are people expected to know that Laura Loomer doesn't look like Jigsaw? It's like, she looks like it. I don't know. But then I guess we have the idea of what will happen with the Iran war. Obviously, there's been a huge amount of fog of war. Everything has been obfuscated to a certain degree. But this idea really of like, what's next, right? Will there be a ceasefire? Are we going to be returning to stockpiling munitions for another 12 months and then coming back to the exact same table? Or we're going to get something even worse, some kind of false flag that will ultimately match the sentiment to needing to undertake, I guess, a ground invasion of Iran, and hopefully not worse. I think there was some talk about a tactical nuke being dropped. I think that talk is still on the table. I think less so now. I think a lot more speaking to boots on the ground. But again, it is a very unfortunate. And again, the main theme here is that we're all stabbed in the back. We're sitting here looking at Trump as he spits in our face and pisses on us while we are not even on fire. But it is unfortunate. So just open it up. I'll let Josh give his take of what your thoughts are of the week so far.
Yeah, crazy, dude. I was just thinking about it's been a month since you and I have done an official Groyper report together.
Has it seriously
You
been
did
a month?
one with Zeb. Yeah, I think a month today. but we did the Iran war. Like, obviously there's extenuating circumstances, but it has been a minute, dude. It has been a real minute. But in reference to your question about where's JD Vance right now, check your local fence, because he's almost certainly sitting on it. That's where JD Vance is right now.
Right.
But yeah, to your point about Donald Trump, man, I mean, it's one of those things. I think Nick even said it, where we knew this was coming, so we're not surprised. But it's one of those things, like, if you, like, we all know, like, our parents are going to go before us, but when it happens, it's like, damn, man, it's real.
Right.
Shit.
Yeah. And
So that's where we are.
well, I think the crazy thing about this is just like the shamelessness too of all the people who have been pushing for him are still, despite everything going on, are clinging on to it. I think there was a tweet, not even 24 hours ago, from Captive Dreamer, which was something like, "You want to know my politics? It's whatever Trump says goes," something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. But whatever, it makes more sense when you realize, to a lot of these people, Trump is their God, not Jesus Christ. They're kind of set aside. They are cut from a different cloth, if you will. It's just rather disappointing. And I think I'm more disappointed than I am angry. I can't speak for everybody, but I feel like the majority of MAGA is already beyond anger. I think it's more of bitterness, just like dark, resentment. I think we kind of skipped anger, and so I'm kind of curious how this is going to play out moving forward as we get closer to 26. And I think it's going to play out exactly how Nick's kind of game planning it, which is this idea that the left is already seemingly in the market looking like they're going to win. Groypers are going to be hand over fist voting blue. And I think that's probably a good point to maybe start with this one, although it's not off of a clip. But the idea here, voting blue, many people obviously, like, they're going to scream about it. They're going to read about it. I don't care anymore. I really don't care about anything for right now, to be honest with you. But the point is if the left gets in, right, the Democrats get the House and the Senate, they get control back, then we're going to be in for a flurry of things like investigations, subpoenas, and we will watch as the current administration is then basically kind of choked out by allowing the left to come back in and giving them things like committee powers and things of that nature too. So that's kind of the goal here. And then I think looking forward to 2028, the idea is just to keep our options open. And I think this is where, can we get another unicorn candidate like James Fishbach to fall out of the sky? Or will it be Tucker Carlson sweeping against the former establishment? It seems to be that's more of the case. I think he spoke to that either yesterday or was it yesterday or a couple of days ago? Tucker Carlson said something to the effect of he almost wants to run for president just to debate Ted Cruz, which is kind of a crazy thing to put out there. But I think many people in the dissident space has a feeling that if there was anybody who could probably walk onto a ticket that would have any kind of meaningful competitiveness to it, it would be Tucker Carlson. And I've heard people floating around the idea of Tucker and a Kerry Baller ticket, which I don't know how that would do. But again, Tucker Carlson, potentially, I don't know. But what are your thoughts on this idea of voting blue?
I'm okay with it in principle. The truth is also we should specify that Nick specified. He said, vote blue in the House of Representatives. You can leave the Senate alone. He's not saying like go vote blue for your city council. Don't do that. That's probably where it's best for you. Like, that's probably where you're actually getting legitimate representation of some kind. But at the federal and state level, it's not happening. So I'm okay with it. I personally am not going to do it. Not out of principle or anything like that. It's just because South Carolina is solid red, and I just don't want to even take the time to go through the process of voting when
Right.
Like, it's just easier not to vote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is, for me, it's a my vote doesn't matter thing rather than I'm not voting blue.
Yeah.
I'd do it. I'd do it if I were somewhere where it mattered.
Right. Well, and the crazy thing is, for me, right, the perspective I have was all of these people who are pushing, the first ones to scream, like, don't vote blue, don't throw your vote away. You have to vote Republicans no matter what. The most basic thing you can do is vote Republican, are all the same people who are pushing Vivek and attacking Casey Putsch. And so their opinions ultimately mean nothing to me anymore. I've kind of moved. To me, I'm at the point where, honestly, like, the only opinion I even really care to hear anymore is Nick Fuentes's. I'm really, really, really irritated at the mind rapeness of the average person. And, and I think for a lot of people, they feel this, and I think this is kind of the point of a lot of conversations I had over the last couple of weeks, for many people who you used to see in chat who are just ultimately demoralized. And it's kind of this idea that was this all for nothing? Was this like the final chance? Are we bound to experience another bad, 4 to 8 years of Democrat, takeover? And I think for a lot of it, it does rest on the idea of like what happens with mass deportations, this immigration issue. The border's secure, that's great. And then when Gavin Newsom gets in and he turns it around, I mean, like what's it for? And quite frankly, to give a bit more of a broader or more specific position, I don't care how secure the border is at all. That actually doesn't mean anything to me. Because it wouldn't matter if we had a mechanism that would get the people out after they came across the border. But that's what we don't have. So the border could be wide open, really, honestly, as long as there existed a mechanism that could push people back out of it. And but we don't have that. And we don't even have the conviction or the willingness or from the average person to do so anyways.
Well, and what's been so distressing to me, dude, like what's been so personally blackpilling to me about the Iran war is not even so much the war itself. I mean, we knew it was coming. We knew Donald Trump was going to totally, giggle and slip it back in for Netanyahu. But
yeah.
What truly has like shocked me, what I was surprised by, is I basically realized that it specifically here in South Carolina, but the numbers are kind of showing it's everywhere. The people have always been neocons, essentially. Like your average Christian podunk, a heel like conservative down here in South Carolina. It's basically like they liked Trump so much that his rhetoric about how the wars were bad was something they were coping with. Like at my job, dude, it is September 12th, 2001. These people are like, kill the sand monkeys. It's legitimately, dude, like they are fully on board with the war. To them, they're buying the whole, it's Muslims, it's this, it's that. And it's like, so to me, they may have gotten on board with Trump for the way he talks, the rhetoric about like illegals and stuff. But as far as the wars go, they were always in support of him, which is so disappointing and heartbreaking.
Well, it's kind of, I mean, even better. I think it's more so than just like supportive of the wars, right? It's like supportive of which wars. And then I think this goes back to an element of like people like, they want to look at this. And again, for a lot of people, history started in 2023. For some, it started in 2001. And it's just like this like complete hodgepodge of like misconceptions, especially when it comes to like Iran as well, too. Like, the idea that like Iran's like largely been the aggressor for the majority of these skirmishes is just insane. And again, but you put any nuance to any argument. And this kind of maybe more so where I understand the frustrations from Nick, which is life is not simple. A lot of people can only think in binaries. They want you to present something to them in a binary. They want you to say yes or no, a blue or red, black or white. And it's like, I don't know what to tell people when it's just like, that's just simply just not how it is. And especially when it comes to war over a period of like now, 40, 50, 60 years, with multiple different leaders, multiple different political factions moving inside of those. It's just, again, people want the most simplest answer, and it's just difficult. Because I think this is kind of like what we're victim to right now, which is in order to engage in politics, you always have to be aware of the weakest link. And that's where I see a lot of this stuff going. There's a lot of it's just purity spiraling. And what have we gained so far, right? What have we gained so far with Trump being in office? What can any person or physically say we have gained or moved forward, especially in terms of Christianity? I don't see anything. Right now we're watching as Trump himself is signing the letter to kick off Carrie Prejean-Baller, and then the only non-Zionists are now not on the Religious Liberty Commission, which is just a huge fluke, and it pisses me off more than I can really articulate. And then now you have like on the nationalism side, it's like, okay, now we effectively have given legal amnesty, in effect to whatever million amount of legal immigrants in there. I feel like we've never gotten a strong number about that. So whether it's 20 million, 30 million, 40 plus million, who knows at this point. And it does feel like the arguments are still happening in the dissident right that cannot leave a bubble. And to me, it's just at the end of the day, it's like we either start gaining ground now or we just don't gain ground, period. And it's like we have to pick one. Either you can be right. You can be right on some kind of extremely nuanced point and lose, or you can figure out how to think about these things differently so we can begin to gain ground. And it's part of the game theory, right? Part of political strategy doesn't always mean like having to be straight on and straight edge. I think there's a bit of a strategy that needs to be applied, being tactical as well too. But with that, I guess we should probably start with some of these clips here. We'll go to Monday. I think Monday we covered a good bit with Professor Jiang. Me and Zeb did on the circuit. I believe that was about, earlier this week or, on Wednesday, I believe. And a very curious figure. Curious that they actually had back and forth. I thought it was odd that Jiang out of nowhere seemingly just issued he had started attacking Nick. I think Sneeko kind of offered it up for him, but it was kind of odd to hear his take there. When I think the impression is that he's definitely the one that's being paid, or some form of like a Russian, Russian disinformation campaign, seeming the similarities between him and Tucker. So I'm kind of curious, where were you at with Jiang?
So real quick before we get into the takes on him, you remember when we first started talking about we did the Iran war stream, you and me did 5 to 6 hours, and John was on, and then Zeb came on later.
Yeah.
I remember I brought him up, and it was to me it was crazy because I hadn't seen any of the blow up that he had gotten recently. The reason I brought him up is it was Nick brought him up in a show in 2021, and for some reason that just flashed into my head in that moment. So the timing of that was crazy. Maybe I am plugged into the Jewish hive mind. They're deploying their Chinese assets, and it's infecting my subconscious. But
Once
I mean,
it never comes off.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like Ben Shapiro just consumes the head at some point. Eventually, you become the yarmulke.
Yeah, no.
And if that doesn't work, then the eyebrows get you.
Yeah,
but
right.
In terms of my actual opinion on Jiang, it's clear he's a spy. I've seen more from him than I have ever before recently, and it's okay, this dude's a fishy,
right?
Yeah,
and
so yeah.
Well, I guess more so the more I looked at Jiang very specifically, the more it appeared to me he was much more of just a resistance lib. And part of the reason why he's so popular and prominent now is because of he was doing a public PBS videography or the kind of documentary type thing, and he got deported from Beijing or out of China because of his because he's holding a camera, in illegal videography or whatever it was. And then he wrote multiple books. He was featured in places I believe the Wall Street Journal for his opposition against standardized testing. So he has a strong track record. It's not like he just kind of came out of nowhere. I think if anything, Ian Carroll more came out of nowhere than Professor Jiang did. Professor Jiang's at least been a public figure since around 2009, I believe, 2010, somewhere in there.
Yeah, he didn't just appear out of the vacuum, but I think one of these things, he's one of these cases where you can argue, was he always captured? But someone like that, where they're kind of kicked out of their country and honestly not very prominent, it's easy to see how these things kind of creep in, how maybe he got assimilated at one point. And I think you're absolutely right when you talk about how he's a resistance liberal, which the truth of the matter is even if he is genuine, the rhetoric is incorrect. It's not what we need right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you just follow him and you just type his name into X, there's a lot of more prominent or viral clips now that's been coming out of these weird injections. I mentioned a couple on stream on the circuit with Zeb, but one of them that really stands out beyond the Islam was made by Jews was the one where he was talking about some battle from Alexander the Great that he said didn't happen. And I guess this is a common theme, he just makes these weird injections in a lot of his teaching. So you can find that clip on X. I didn't really watch much of it because I just feel like I'm being lied to all the time anyways, so I'm not going to even bother to let it propagandize my ears. But I think one of the first things we can go to, speaking of how many people think is fishy, and I think I can see it in the comments right now, is James Fishbach. And it looks like that Nick has kind of gone a little bit full send on Fishbach. This idea that Fishbach is a phenom. And before I go, I'll let Nick speak for me, but I'm curious your opinions on Fishbach so far.
Yeah, I was actually kind of hoping we would get into this because the truth of the matter is that I'm not sold on Fishbach. I like him, but I'm kind of still in the same place that we all were at the beginning, where I like the rhetoric. He hasn't done anything yet besides, I think, saying that Iran treats their women wrong that I disagreed with. But there's maybe, and you pointed this out, he has a very similar style to Vivek, and maybe that's it. Maybe that's why. But I haven't seen anything that makes me distrust him or trust him any more or less than from the beginning. So I'm still undecided on him. And I want to know more.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm kind of in the same spot. I'm cool with him for right now, but I would like to see him play out a little bit more. I would like to see him in office, right? But like, how do you see somebody in office without voting for him first? You know, and it's kind of like that's the catch-22.
I was just gonna say the only thing that would validate like is he real or not is let's see what he does on the reins of power, because there's an argument, and I'm not saying I believe this, I don't, but there's an argument that he is basically running on all of the issues that we care about to lose and then say, oh, see, well, this guy tried it and it didn't work.
Yeah,
we'll see. But again, I'm not saying that's the case. This is just like different options, different theories. Who knows? So I'm undecided. Again, I like the rhetoric.
I just, to me, like, there's just no argument against him. Like, your option is Byron Donalds or James Fishbach.
I definitely vote for Fishbach over Donalds.
Right. It's like,
but if it comes to do I think he's authentic, on the fence.
Yeah. And I'm more so like
I'm hanging out with JD up there.
Right. But I guess I look at things again more pragmatically. I just look at it like in the short term there, which is you are going to get either Fishbach or Byron Donalds. Like that is a bit of more of a binary in terms of the Republican primary there. So like, what do you have to lose? But I've made this argument 100 times. I think a lot of people just want to get super into the weeds on things that ultimately don't matter. But this is the Nick Fuentes praising Fishbach. I think that's probably the most glowing he's been about him. But here's the first clip of the evening for you guys. Well, if it works. There we go.
James Fishbach at a Denny's in Tampa. Really great guy. Took a picture with him holding up the Nativist flag and he signed it lol.
He's a phenomenon. Period. Full stop. I hate when people say full stop, but he is a phenomenon. That Denny's was packed. It's unbelievable. He is excellent. And I wasn't so sure about him off the rip. You know, there were some questions about his conversion and everything, let's say. But now I think he's a phenom, and I'm rooting for him. I think he's incredible.
Dojo Hambino sent $50.
I think regardless of what you want to say about Fishbach, I think one thing can't be understated is he is running a good campaign. Regardless of what you think, I mean, a guy kind of came out of nowhere against essentially an incumbent. Byron Donalds for the longest time was seen as like the heir to DeSantis. He was always kind of rising and being promoted by people inside of the Trump network, inside of the MAGA network. And I think I would say the same thing about Vivek. I think Vivek, like in the 2024 era, like was running a good campaign. It doesn't mean that I like him or think he's authentic, but I think that's an objective reality. I mean, you don't come in out of nowhere and gain 8% on a primary, you know, going up against like Trump and everyone else who was in there. What was it, in Idaho or Iowa that he did that? I think it was Iowa. And I guess I'm kind of excited for it. And I think, again, I'll go back to my main kind of take. The reason why I'm really supportive of Fishbach is because if he can be successful running on an unapologetic America First platform, that is the best thing you can get out of Fishbach. And it will open the door to a lot of other candidates. And the best thing about this is he started to say that too. He was in the car, I believe in an interview with somebody from InfoWars. I don't know if it was Alex himself or one of the other co-hosts, but he said that himself. He was like, if I can prove that this is successful, he was like, it will really change the landscape for America First. And so if he's aware of that, that gives me even more sign that like, okay, he's like really down with this mission. We might not agree on everything, but I'll take Fishbach over quite literally anyone else.
Easily, dude. Easily. I mean, I think the guy is exceptional. And like you rightly said, he runs a great campaign. I just wish I wish Casey Putsch could get that same momentum behind him. You know what I mean? Especially for your sake. But
yeah, it
is what it is, man. And Byron Donalds.
Yeah. Byron
That's
Donalds,
crazy, dude. That's crazy.
Apex Shakur.
Like if let's just say for argument's sake, I was 100% sure that Fishbach was legit. What's the one thing I would change? I wish it was a little bit of a different rapper, because he's kind of dorky looking. You know what I mean?
You know
like
who he reminds me of?
Who's that?
Logic. You know the rapper Logic? He's like the half white, half black
No.
guy who like.
I'm not a reformed wigger. I don't know who that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know
okay.
that. I was gonna say you know who he reminds me of? He reminds me. He looks like someone who was on a couple episodes of Big Bang Theory. That's what he looks like a background character on Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, I can see that. Like he's like a Disney
And
like substitute teacher or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he does. I mean, and this is the thing. People can't underestimate this. Like, he is a very charismatic, like, individual, right? Like, he is able to speak. And I would say he's a bit better than Vivek in terms of, like, his ability to speak. I mean, like, I don't think Vivek was getting nearly as much of the kind of pushback that Fishbach has been getting from the just the jump on his campaign. He's been handling it really well. All of, like, the turnarounds, all of, like, the responses on X. I know some people, like, didn't like his appearance on, what was it? Like, it was the Fresh and Fit podcast. They didn't like the way he was talking about women and how to treat them. And I don't know. I find that to be just such a minute and small thing to
and with
care
a
about.
lot of people, maybe like I think with a lot of people, it's really like the people that are naturally charismatic that can be like total or like sociopathic two-faced liars, you know?
Right.
But like generally speaking, you can know enough about a person on vibes alone. And Vivek Ramaswamy was always arrogant. Like that like before, like I think I told you that I actually spoke with him on the phone because he called into the radio show I work for, but this was before the presidential primaries. No, you know, he was not hot shit back then. He was calling into places like where I work to get, you know, exactly. So also I got in a fight with one of his South Carolina campaign managers who was gay. Maybe I'll tell that story one day, but
really?
yeah, I won't get into it here.
He was kind of all over the place though. I think I've told the story before, but I will say it again. You know, it was I was privy to him vacating his campaign in Ohio early on because my father was the spectrum agent who disconnected and removed all the internet out of the office he was using there in Columbus for the time. So I knew like in advance, like Vivek was like dumping out of Ohio to go do different things, to go move on to more presidential stuff, which is kind of interesting. But again, too, like it speaks to the fact that he's got so much money behind him too, like a lot of endorsements. And here's this too. I think we should probably say this at the beginning, especially as it relates to Vivek. Vivek Ramaswamy is like down 10 points to Amy Acton in the favorability polls right now. Or not even the favorability poll. I think these were the early polling data. I mean, like, what do you expect? This is kind of the point, right? Which is like maybe somebody could have asked an Ohioan, like, if they want an Indian to like, you know, run their state. Like, no, I'm sorry. But again, nobody cares about this. It's all about Trump. Whatever Trump says go, the Trump endorsement has to go. And again, part of the reason. Go ahead.
Sorry. But I'm curious is it because they don't like Vivek or is it because he's Republican and this is a backlash to like Trump's failure almost? I'm thinking mainly like center people. So, and I want you being in Ohio, I wanted to get your take on that.
So I was trying to saying this for years on end. I've been in multiple arguments with random people, like other Ohio like candidates and people like that, all the way back in like 2023. Ohio is purple, and it has been purple for years. Purple in the sense that the people who are red are very red, and the people who are blue are very blue. There's like not many like centrists around, and especially if you're looking at like like Columbus, like the major urban area, it's dominated by not just blue, but like very blue politics. Where I mean, we're talking like, you know, rainbow flags everywhere. Almost every other, you know, lawn that you walk across has like the intersectionality flag. But in the red areas, it's very red. It's like these are people who are like extremely pro-Trump and like very, very, and some even beyond that too. And of course, if they're going to run Vivek on this ticket, the moment that he started doing all that stuff with the Christmas, you know, during Christmas and dumping on Heritage America, I knew it was cooked at that point. So we're essentially just, I mean, the hope now is like, dude, I hope Amy Acton wins. You know, obviously I want Casey Push to win, but if I'm being realistic at this point, dude, Amy Acton. I want to see Vivek get shut out of politics and his career be over and we never have to hear his name again. If you're asking me.
Hell yeah, dude.
Put these people away forever. Figuratively, not like harming them or anything. And one of these other things, we kind of covered pretty much everything I wanted to take out on Monday, except one of the final points that came from Nick, which is, I think, to bring everything back to square one, which is where we're at right now as we are experiencing the Iran war. We are in the middle of this. We are benefiting nothing from it. And we're kind of also not sure whether who's winning, right? Like what's even going on. I think this is kind of another element that we were trying to explore. But Nick had a message and he said, if you are not with your whole being against the war in Iran, F you. And I agree. Here's that clip.
Need to be called out. We need to go to war. It is time to name and shame the shills. Name and shame every shill. If you are not with your whole being right now against the war in Iran, fuck you. And you need to be called out. Otherwise, don't call yourself right wing. Don't call yourself America first. Don't call yourself a Trump supporter. What is happening is that our country is under a hostile occupation by international Jewry. American sons and daughters are killing children and civilians and enemy combatants and also being killed by them for the sake of a foreign country's agenda. As long as that is happening, we are not free. We are not sovereign. We are not independent. We are not America. So don't call yourself a patriot. Don't call yourself American. Don't call yourself America first if you are not opposing this with every cell in your body. Otherwise, you are a liar and a hypocrite. That is what matters right now. We can resume all the other stuff later. We can literally resume any other disagreement after we're out of this war. It makes me sick. It's disgusting. This is all going towards building the third temple and the Antichrist being seated on his throne. And you're talking about immigration right now. You know what? Trump has had 15 months. It ain't happening. Now you want to talk about immigration? Where was that when Trump was talking about luncheonettes and farmers? Remember that little episode? Remember that little ditty from January? When Trump said, take it easy, lighten up. We don't need to deport every illegal alien, only the criminals. Where was the immigration talk then? Oh, we're only talking about immigration during the war and only about Muslims because that's who the Jews need us to hate right now so that we go and fight and die in their war, right? We're losing. We're losing our country. We're losing our civilization. We have no sovereignty, and people are not taking it seriously.
Thoughts, Josh? You go.
No, yeah, he. Well, thank you. he's absolutely right, and it's one of those things where I don't know about you, man, but the talk about like rebuilding the third temple, I've heard that kind of talk my whole life, growing up in the Christian church and in the South, that's what a lot of people talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's almost like, holy shit, is it like going to happen now for real? Like, are we going to witness some like pillars of fire coming down from the sky? And it is scary. It is one of those things where I go to the Costco on Saturday and I feel like I'm in New Delhi and it sucks. But at the same time, but then
Real.
But then this where it's like, oh my God, are we about to like trigger like a biblical event? It is getting to that point where I'm like, what's going on, guys?
Well, it hits different
So
when you see.
I'm in full support. We gotta put a stop to this.
Yeah, well, dude, it hits different when you see Pete Hegseth talking about it. Like what was it, like 8 years ago? We need to rebuild the third temple. Back when he was like a part of who was it, like John McCain's ensemble. He's always had his hand in politics for a hot minute. He was a real slime piece. And I remember when Hegseth was selected early on to all of the MAGA defenders for it. And I guess my take too, I would go back to what he was saying there at the beginning, which is, I mean, think about how much of our political, I guess, landscape from like 2014 to like 2022, even a little bit beyond there, has been looking back at the people who were pushing for the forever wars in the beginning. And I think that we're going to be, you know, a few years from now looking back at these moments now and the people who are pushing for it now and the people who are defending it, who are arguing tooth and leg, you know, that it's in America's interest. We're going to be looking back hopefully with a bit more of a clear view of what was actually going on and, you know, some consequences downstream. And I imagine it'll be the same effect. It'll be looking at these people with extreme disdain. They drug America into a conflict that it didn't need to, for a country that doesn't have our interests at heart, and for the only purpose of to serve this fringe, and in my opinion, heretical Zionist view. And here we are once again. You know, we've learned nothing. And I think the saddest part about it is kind of the way that Nick framed it. I don't know if it was this week or maybe it was last week, but essentially, like, you know, from 2016 to 2026, nothing was gained. The only thing that you could say was actually has been changed is the Overton window has moved, because we're just getting smarter and more innovative of how to get information across. That there's a push and pull of like how much you can censor before, you know, people just, you know, begin to actually literally fight back. At least you would think. But I hope that's what most people take away from it is burn it into your brain. The people who pushed for this, the people who defended it, and never again. To copy their language, never again.
I'd argue that in terms of strategic political victories, we're worse off because, and then, you know, this has been said many, many times before, Trump's rhetoric until, you know, recently, but it's like his 2016 rhetoric was fantastic. This was moving the Overton window, but he didn't commit. So all he did, just as all he's doing right now, is he is animating the opposition. The truth is yeah, immigration was bad back in 2015, 2016, but it wasn't on anyone's mind really. So Trump put it in our heads. Very important, but that has it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It puts it in the left's head too. So what do? Is they react in kind. They say, oh, you want to stop bringing Mexicans in? Well, we want to bring in 10 million. So what do you have to do? You have to commit to it. But he didn't, and the left did. So we're actually worse. Like if it never got brought up, like if Jeb Bush got in there, we would still be getting a ton of illegals, but I guarantee it would be less than 10 million in 4 years. I guarantee it, dude.
Right. Yeah, and I am still kind of sitting here like I wish anybody had a real kind of idea of like what the actual number is. It's obviously been more than 10 million. I would say it's got to be definitely greater than 20 million, right? Significantly more. And I guess moving on to Tuesday, forgive me. I don't know. I think you know, not to be blackpilling by any means at all. But this is just kind of the overall vibe I've had for the last couple of days, and I'm trying to fight back against it. So hopefully you guys are doing a better job than I am. But again, I've been doing this for like 3 years or so, and it's just felt like it's been all for nothing. Then one of the other themes I want to touch upon is this idea again to where is JD Vance in all of this? And this is also going to be a huge point given the fact that he's going to attempt to be the front runner of, you know, going into 2028. And I think there's a possibility that perhaps maybe even Rubio becomes the lead of the ticket. I'm unsure. It seems like there's some betting data going back and forth. I know that there was the memo or the report that was it came out, this was maybe about a week ago, maybe even just a couple of days ago, where there was a dinner that was had before we had struck Iran, where Trump asked 25 of the top GOP donors who they would rather see lead the ticket or be the heir after him. And almost unanimously, they said Rubio. So if that's any kind of decision, and here's the thing too, let me marry that point with another point Nick had made, which is another big thing people need to take away is it's becoming clearer that public sentiment is having literally zero influence on the outcomes of what the government and the policies of this nation are, which is a huge kind of point here, which is to say, even if the people want JD Vance, if the donors want Rubio, at this point, I'm expecting Rubio to somehow just walk in and take the lead and somehow win. It seems to be the donors control a lot more and the elites control a lot more, obviously, than any amount of cultural significance or public sentiment or, you know, the will of the people. And I think this is also showcased in if you were to just compare and contrast the reaction to the efforts in Minnesota compared to the efforts in the Iran war. You have in Minnesota, largely, it's only one side of the aisle that's complaining about it. Sure, you have some people who are hesitant on our side, but you still had, it was still majoritively supported for these deportations and to get this fraud out. It was roping in people who are aren't Groypers, just general right-wingers who want to see these people get deported who are illegal. Then you compare that to the Iran war. Iran war is opposed by everybody. Left, right, center, down the line, doesn't matter. And then they immediately it's just they don't care. It doesn't matter. There's nothing about everybody not wanting war. They're continually going on forward with it. And so, again, this is to kind of make the point that there's seemingly, again, no connection to what people want, the will of the people, and what actually happens in the United States government.
Dude, 100%. And it's so poignant. And this was actually a conversation I had with my boss recently, where, he was of the mind that when we pulled out of Minnesota, this is politically strategic. I want to get the Somalian scammers out of there too. But when the cops start killing people, man, that just looks bad. It's going to rub independents the wrong way. Think of the independents. Okay, well, nobody, not nobody, the MAGA tards like it, but the Iran war is insanely unpopular. And all of a sudden, what do you know? Who gives a shit about public sentiment? The midterms, whatever, dude. We got to do what we got to do. There won't be any midterms because Iran has an ICBM and it's on its way here now. So that's why we got to take them out.
Right. Yep. They chant death to America, so let's go bomb them now. Oh, why do they?
When's the last time that even happened, bro? Dude, everybody has been saying that, calling into the show I work for. And it's dude, okay, a couple guys said that in the 80s. Give me a break, dude. Look at the video, and I'm sure you even saw this. I mean, if I saw it, you guys did. But you see the videos of Iranians after 9/11 where they were mourning it, and then Jews in New York City. I mean, that's an old clip. I mean, that's been circulated forever. But the Jewish woman who's just oh my gosh, what a tragedy. Dude, it's
and the dancing, right? The dancing is another.
Of course, yeah.
Well, and I think I saw this. This is a phenomenal pushback on this. Somebody had made a post about that. I'm trying to think. Maybe it was Joel Webben who said this, but I don't think it was. I wish I could remember who it was, giving them credit. But they were saying the same thing. Iran's. We have to get Iran. Yada yada. The neocon bullshit talk. And somebody responded, "Why do they say that? Why do they say hey, death to America? Why would they be oppositional to us? What? They just and for most people, the most people, they seriously believe this. They're just oh, they just hate us because that's what Islam is. In the Quran, it says we hate America somewhere in there. And that's just what they believe. It's just okay. Okay.
Dude, and that's exactly what we've been saying, dude, is just don't debate boomers because their brain resets in their sleep. And I've tried on the show to explain this. I go, okay, Iran hates Israel and America because they're Muslim and they hate the West, and the Quran tells them to kill all the infidels. Why is their number one business partner China? What's the Muslim population in China? Are the Chinese not considered infidels? Oh, they are? Well, why are they doing business with them? Why do they not have any beef with them? I mean, they're their neighbor. Wouldn't it be logistically a whole lot easier to try and destroy China because they're connected by land? Why do they have beef with us?
Right.
And you put that thought in and they go, oh, I never thought about it like that. And then the next day you bring it up and they're they say death to America. And it's literally did the Men in Black come through here or something?
Yeah, but they need it like that. People just need you to tell them that they're evil and they believe in this. And for some reason, it just doesn't work the other way around. You go, yeah, but you realize the Jews also do this, right? They are also very anti to our beliefs. They don't fit into Western values. If anything, it's their belief system instead is actually a 180 compared to where we are, right? If you were to comparatively view how they treat and talk about, our Lord and Savior. It's a common point that's brought up, but ultimately it's meaningless. I think a lot of it. I think we're just. I mean, if you're asking me, I think we're just kind of like we're all in the cuck chair right now. We're all just watching as our country gets bent over, and I feel like for many people it's extremely demoralizing, and myself included. Just like what Tex Bomber had said earlier, right? It feels like it's very, very hopeless, and it's just like the space is just filled with people who go voting doesn't matter, but they get mad that you say I'm voting Democrat. And it's like, okay, well, voting doesn't matter. Turn the phone off. Go be a violent psychopath somewhere. Be in the news. Make it harder for everybody else. Or like maybe, I don't know, put something forward that would actually be meaningful. But again, no one wants to come up to the plate. No one wants to even begin to tinker with it. And again, it's just this idea too of like in the era of like 2026, like a collective or group getting together. It's like, look at Patriot Front, right? And like look how hard it is for them to, even be able to do anything without getting the cops caught on them. And I've had many people who were a part of Patriot Front who have talked to me and had personal communications with me who like aren't happy with the way that Patriot Front has handled themselves, where they treat people in their own. Like there's differing things like that. And so everybody just has it in their head that there's just like this magical rainbow at the end of this tunnel where we're all going to raise arms against the state, and it's just going to be, I don't know, there'll be a pot of gold somewhere and we're all going to win. But another point was a lot of the seething that was occurring, and I guess to bring it back to center here, we'll go to Shabbos Kestenbaum, who is seething about Nick Fuentes, Sneeko, and Myron at an anti-Semitism conference. And you guys might get a kick out of this, but here it is.
To engage with individuals like Nick Fuentes or Sneeko or Myron Gaines, who believe that we should rape women whom we disagree with, who believe that all blacks must be imprisoned, who believe that all Mexicans, including American citizens, should be deported, who believe that Jews need to go back to the gas chambers, while they also don't believe that gas chambers existed, but that's a conversation for another time. Refusing to engage with those individuals is engaging in common sense. And again, I'll keep repeating this. If we pretend that is not true, we will lose elections. So going back to the question you asked earlier, I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to get in trouble, but if you are planning on running for president in 2028 and you are part of the Trump administration right now and you want to, I didn't say anyone's name, but you want to sort of nod and wink to this terminally online Groyper base, RJC has done a tremendous job the last year or two bringing Democrats, lifelong Democrats like myself, into the Republican Party and into the conservative movement, because we saw firsthand how the Democratic Party gave hugs to Mahmoud Khalil and gave middle fingers to American Jews. So we left the Democratic Party to come here. And if our nominee is someone who, as I said, is winking to that online space, then we will lose elections. And quite frankly, we will deserve to lose elections.
So what's insane about this is this actually sells. And, to go back to the Iran war, right, we kind of left out one group that actually does support it. And I think Nick talked about this this week, actually. I forget it was on Tuesday or Wednesday. But if you look at and you separate by the polling of like the support for the war or against the war, if you look at MAGA Republicans, what was it, Josh? It was like 96% are in support of it who consider themselves MAGA Republicans.
Yeah. It was 95 or 96. It was insane.
It was a cult.
Yeah. And Nick called it, dude, that like he like Donald Trump was the Trojan horse. He's the salesman who sold them on the war. I just thought that's what I said earlier. I was surprised at how many people just didn't care. They're like they to this day they don't think the Iraq war was bad.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't even think it's that. I don't even think it's that they have those beliefs. I think these people are just like abused. Like I think a lot of these people are just like abused, like have been psychologically abused. And you think about what was MAGA, right? Let's go to like 2016. What was MAGA? What did that mean? Right? MAGA was this idea of the forever wars were a terrible idea. It was on the idea that everybody in the political space is being propped up by donors. And I don't need that, right? This is the message from Donald Trump. The idea was to make America great again, because so much of what was happening was serving interests that weren't for the American people. It was draining the swamp, right? It was this idea of eliminating all of this kind of garbage that surrounds it. And where is that? I mean, like, where is any of that, right? It doesn't, none of it's here. None of it exists. And I like the way that Nick framed it the best, which is you know, you look at MAGA, and a lot of these people are saying, you know, the lesser of two evils. Well, at least it's better than nothing. And this is kind of like how they choose how to vote, right? But when you look at it, though, the left in this country is the most progressive anti-white group that's ever existed in America. Well, maybe not ever, but in its current broad form. And MAGA was marginally better than that. And everyone's like, woo, you know, it's like, wow, congrats, like we're winning. You know, it's like, wow, most base president of our lifetime couldn't even, like, you know, nationally ban transgenderism. Like, it's just, what are we doing here? Like, it's just like, you're going to tell me that we had 8 years of Trump and people are still getting their balls cut off? What are we doing here? Like, what actual gain was made, right? Like, there's like, and again, like, it's this level of seriousness. And I do like what I think it was Marcus and Moto had put up there earlier. And this is an idea that I had too, which is like, you know, there needs to be more collectivization. And I think about it in the sense of, why don't we start right now? Why doesn't there a kind of a grassroots movement of people who are like, who could be eligible to run for president? Like, I don't care if it's a 37-year-old guy from Tennessee I'd never heard of before. Who's eligible to run for president, right? Is there like a sheriff that can find somewhere? Like, where is this action at, right? If we've already, if it seems like the dissident right has kind of decided that no one from the administration currently can run in 28. We're not going to get our vote. No one's coming up to the table. So what are we doing to make sure that that's not who dominates the ticket? Where's the push for someone else? Where are they? Where's any of this grassroots effort? So like, maybe I need to start, right? Maybe I just need to start, build some kind of like, you know, Excel spreadsheet that's like, who are eligible candidates? Who are people who could get donor backing to them that aren't a part of this establishment? And then also I sit there and I think too, and I'm like, but I'm like this guy who's barely making ends meet, you know, with a YouTube channel, like having to do the part-time work. And it's like, and now I guess I have to do that too. I'm okay with doing that, but it's more so when you recognize like there is a lot more that we could be doing. There's so much more that we could be doing, and it's just simply not getting done. And I think therein lies the problem, which is there is just a lack of actual conviction to actually see things through. Plenty of complaining, plenty of pointing out, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, but almost zero of, I'm going to do this because of it. And that's what I used to hear from my teacher in FFA all the time. And she was a great teacher, you know, and she had some energy to her, but she'd come around and she'd be like, do not complain to me if you have no solution. I don't want to hear it. If you complain, you better follow that up immediately with what you're going to do about it. And that's how I think. So like, if these are the complaints, so what are we going to do? What's the other option? Because we can't perennially sit in this position of like, nothing's ever good enough and always being, no, not that, no, not that, no, not that. Well, then we have nothing. And that's kind of my mindset on it. Your thoughts?
Absolutely, dude. It's a lot to unpack there, but
Right.
I love the energy. I love your energy, dude. Let's go. It's one of those vote for Brent Peterson. That's what I'm writing in John Pork and Brent Peterson. That's what I'm doing. But it's so disheartening to see, just like, because to your earlier point about how you think people are kind of browbeaten and they're just disheveled and they're selling it to themselves. You are absolutely right about that, because as much as in like recent history, like I've kind of like begrudged my boss a little bit, you know, I've kind of put him down. The audience is retarded. The audience is evil and retarded, but my boss at least is like, he's a boomer. He's a victim of circumstance, but he's free thinking enough to say that he is not happy about Trump starting the Iran war. He is not happy about it, but he doesn't know where to go from there. And I feel for guys like him in a way, because it's like, think about being a conservative, like an actually conservative boomer that you have lost and lost and lost. Someone like Trump comes along and you lose again. I think a perfect example of this is Alex Jones. I like his stream with Nick the other week when he was getting like clearly emotional. I felt for the guy, dude, because it's like Alex Jones has been in this forever. And you're hopeless for so long, you get a little beam of light, and then that turns out it was just it was all nothing, dude. It is disheartening, but that's part of it, dude. You just have to stick it out till the end.
You know, I have a soft spot for Alex, and you know, I think for a lot of people, you know, he is essentially like the king of conspiracies. I think, Alex Jones was right. JAR existed for a reason. I mean, this is a guy who had a lot of, he did a lot of good. I think ultimately, still where he stands, he's a net positive. I think he's working against that right now. And if anybody paid attention to the stream I did last night, just seeing where he's at now, debating Jimmy Dore is just like, I mean, it's just sad. I can't even watch it anymore. It's like, turn the TV off, please. No, I don't want to see my hero get beaten. It's like one of those scenes in like an anime where like the guy's favorite hero is like losing to the villain. It's like, oh, this is bad. This is bad. This is humiliating. But at the same time, this is kind of indicative of the human element. This idea of believing in heroes, putting faith into people who aren't Jesus Christ, having this expectation that people like won't let you down, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's kind of a bit what details Alex and the difference between him and his son, right? Rex just puts his faith a bit more into Christ. And this is why a lot of people like listening to Rex Jones now and inviting him on with like Owen Schroyer and things like that. Because you can't put your hope into man. You simply can't. I think if there is anything that needs to be said and should be taken away from this, is like, stop putting your faith into people. Always doubt them first. That's what I would actually say. Like, doubt who's telling you anything, period, regardless. And that goes hand in hand with the fact that this space is so manipulated. There's so much payment going around. And I'm not just talking about the $7,000 payments. I'm talking about Gunther Eagleman getting exposed for $300 reposts. I'm talking about, and there's a network of people who are being paid like this, right? $300, $400, $500 to quote tweet this and say something funny about it. Repost this, and it's all a big joke. It's just a big joke. And then next thing you know, it builds a sentiment for people who are tangentially on these platforms. You're on X maybe once a week or something, and you see Valentina Gomez and Laura Loomer, and that's your politics for the week. Meanwhile, everyone else who's actually really in it is going like, these people are retarded. No, that we're anti this. And it's just unfortunate because it requires an extreme amount of vigilance. And so if you don't have a good person to go to, like, for me and you would both say we take our direction from Nick, like, to me, there's no one else even close to the space, like literally at all, that's even worth an ounce of listening to. I really only do listen to Nick anymore, outside of few and far between. But that's the problem. It's like, you need someone like that now to break things down for you, because so much is going on behind the scenes that's not present on Fox News, that's not present on the Daily Wire, that's not present on Democracy Now!, that you have to go to these outside sources. And for some people, they think they found that in somebody like a Tim Pool. Some people think they found that in a Captive Dreamer. Some people think they found that in a John Doyle, and they don't realize they're being hoodwinked again, just in a different format with a little bit of pizzazz. And it's one of the saddest things of all time.
Yeah, dude, I know. And we've actually talked about this before, where it's one of the worst and best things that we have on going against us and on our side is the people are unthinking masses. And a perfect example is like, look at like Shabbos Kestenbaum, for example, or Bill Maher.
Yeah.
Bill Maher has been a hyper liberal forever. And only because until like a couple years ago, he started disagreeing with transgenderism, all is forgiven. Like, you should hear some of the people at my job. They're like, all is forgiven. I'm like, dude, Bill Maher is instrumental in why we are in this problem in the first place. Hell no. And perfect. And they're willing to. Shabbos Kestenbaum is a liberal.
Right.
He is a liberal. The reason he comes on a conservative platform and is like, our elections is because he wants the war to proceed, you idiots. He just said, he was like, oh, Nick Fuentes wants to deport American citizens. And I get, I'm sure a bunch of these boomer tards would be like, oh, well, it's because they're illegal. Mm-hmm. But this dude is not on your side. But the boomer, they fell for, what are those, like The Help, all these like fried green tomatoes. Like, I want to, I want my pet inward to, pat me on the head and tell me I'm a good boy.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's like what the majority of MAGA is. It's made up of these people who walk, like Brandon Straka, right? Shabbos Kestenbaum. These people who walked away from the left, and because, transgenderism like went a little too far. Made up of people like Ashley St. Clair, Savannah Hernandez, empowering women. Like, it's okay as long as the woman's based, like, and it's just a big joke. we're so far from just like some of the basics, if you will. But I guess to put a pin on that and change it up a little bit, going to Wednesday, I think this is going to be kind of the big topic to sink a lot of teeth in, because I think this is really what a lot of people need to be thinking about moving forward, which is this idea that immigration is a dead issue. And before I play this one, we could have probably played 10 straight minutes of this. I think it would be worth it, but I will preface the beginning of it, and that is that Nick got insider information from the Homeland Security. This is his claim. This is what he's saying. And that this inside information was paired with the fact that Kristi Noem was recently, I think, relegated. I don't know if she was completely removed from the administration, but she was relegated, and they have now put in Mark Wayne Mullins. And with this change at the head of the DHS also came the news earlier in the week, which is no more mass deportations. Don't say it. Don't say it. Which was this hush hush, which was it's off the table. Mass deportations are over. And it's going so far as the methodology has changed completely. It is only going to be criminal migrants anymore. I don't even see Tom Foes in chat. I see, brother. But it's going to be
Tom?
only violent criminals. It's now changed to people who only have prior convictions or presumably have committed a crime since they've been in the United States or have done something, broken the law in some way outside of just the crossing. And it's from this that Nick kind of expands upon the idea of why it's dead, why he thinks it's dead. But the white pill in there is he says we should think about this differently moving forward. And this is going to be kind of the big topic for today. It's about a 5-minute clip, but here it is.
As far as I'm concerned, the immigration issue is over. I know that's controversial. I know you don't like to hear that. And I know what people are going to say. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a dead issue. Maybe there was a time when we could have stopped it. Maybe there was a time when we could have built a wall and deported everybody, but that time has surely passed. And Trump blew it. Trump blew it both times. We had a chance if they got it together in 2016, they could have built the wall. They could have deported a bunch of people. They didn't. We had our one last chance. We had one last shake in 24. He got elected in the popular vote. For whatever reason, it's cultural, it's the pendulum, whatever you want to say. He got back in even with Hispanics. And he made it a poisonous issue. And now I don't know that it's ever going to go back in the other direction. I don't know that that'll ever happen. And even if it does, it's almost too late. It's almost too late. The damage has been done. It's set in. And now we have to change how we think about the issue. That old America, heritage America, sorry, it is dead. I know people don't like to hear that. America's not going to be a Norman Rockwell painting. We're not going to be a republic, not an empire. It's done. It's done, and we lost. Okay, you had 30 years to get your act together between Pat Buchanan and Donald Trump and Ann Coulter and all these different nativist groups, and it just never materialized. And I think that's finished. And I think that now what we're playing for is to regain control over our empire, to try to improve the quality of life within the empire, to try to ameliorate the worst effects of diversity. Honestly, I think it's time for a little dose of reality, because at this point, I'm gonna say something else you're not gonna like. Immigration is becoming one of these issues that is used almost exclusively just to trick white people. It is the MacGuffin. It is this thing that we are always chasing, always trying to get, always elusive. We're ignoring everything else in pursuit of this thing that we're just never going to get. And so, for example, Trump brought with him in this administration all these corporate raiders and cronies and plutocrats. He brought with him all the oligarchs and the Zionists and Jared Kushner and wars for Israel and digital currency and Palantir coming in on the heels of Doge. All these different things, they're so bad. It's like we're going to not have privacy. We're not going to have a Fourth Amendment. The military is banning Anthropic because they want to militarize ChatGPT. We're at war with Iran. You got this big, beautiful bill, which is a monstrosity. We're moving towards digital currency. Tether is in the White House. You got the shit coins being sold by the Trump family. So many horrible things have been unleashed. And all of you white nativists are willing to take it all, swallow it all, because you say, well, as long as we're doing something about immigration. And you go, are we doing anything about immigration? What are we doing about immigration? Is it really worth it? They go, well, anything is going to help. No, I don't think it is. I mean, at a certain point, you have diminishing returns. You have a concept of marginal utility. If you got 50 million illegals, no, I'm sorry, deporting 400,000 doesn't do a damn thing. We have 30, 40 million illegals. We're bringing in millions of legal immigrants. What we're playing for is to remove 300,000 people per year, that we're going to kill everything else on that basis. War with Iran, big beautiful bill, no restrictions on AI, all of that for 200,000 deportations. And you're seriously going to tell yourself every little bit counts? That's delusional. That's totally insane. And it doesn't even matter, because in 4 years, eventually we're going to get another Democrat and they're just going to undo everything we did 1,000-fold, like what Biden did. So being perfectly honest with you, and again, you're not going to like this, but you need to hear it. So much of the nativist politics, it really is a race hustle. It really is. And it doesn't mean that I don't believe in it. I think immigration is ruinous. It is terrible. It has objectively destroyed our quality of life. It has alienated us within our own country. It is a disaster. And if I could wave a magic wand and undo it, I would do that in a second. You know, I do think that this is a white country. I do think this flowered from European civilization. I wish it was still that way. Okay? With that being said, these issues are being used to get us angry. These issues are being dangled in front of us, always out of reach, no intention of following through, so they can distract us and get us angry so that we will not pay attention to and ignore everything else. And then in the end, we don't even get what we're promised. That is what it feels like to me.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, when I saw this, dude, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be bad. This was the clip that had me going, I'm anxious about how Atlas is feeling about this and talking about it on Groyper Report, because I mean, the truth is, I think he's right.
Same.
But it just sucks to say.
I had to pause the show.
You know,
I was listening to it live when this moment happened, actually. I had to stop listening to it because it hit me so hard. Like, not being gay or anything, but I it sunk into me.
No, yeah.
It just like, if this was the failure, we're gonna lose. The expectation we lose in 28, I'm just like immediately doing the math. I'm like, all the people who Biden let in, they'll have been here for 9 years. How do you make the pitch that people who have like bought homes, established lives, like, you know, have children in school, like now it becomes an even harder sell. Like now they're established immigrants, right? Then now they'll have like some kind of legal status. And there's like, it's already being pushed by Republicans right now, being, you know, once again, sponsored by Mike Lawler, right? Here he comes again with his, you know, his Jewish hands on everything. And it's just like, they were ready for it. It was like the moment the heat got too much in Minnesota, Mike Lawler and a bunch of Republicans and a couple Democrats too came together and they're like, all right, let's find, how do we immediately give these people like 7 years of legal status? So what is that going to do? So is the expectation that after 10 years of being here, then we're going to deport them? Like, it's just like, dude, it's such a joke. It's more of like kicking the can down the field. And well, you got to think about it differently, but go ahead.
Because I was thinking about this too, and I was like, realistically, I think the only way that immigration can be solved is after the revolution. And by revolution, I don't mean what Zeb means by it. I mean like the political reformation, I guess you would call
revolution
it. It's like
thought.
Revolution of thought. It's like you'd have to get someone in there as president who kind of Trojan horses to a certain effect and then declares like a state of emergency, becomes a despot like declares martial law, dissolves Congress, packs the court, and does just the thing that everyone is afraid of. And only after that is done can you rally the military to start deporting people left and right.
Yep.
Because if we're talking about the system as it currently exists, that involves voting. And as much as I hate the argument that, it's not politically strategic, it's politically strategic to pull out of Minneapolis because the independents are going to be pissing in their panties because some dumb bitch got shot.
Yeah.
But it's true. But they are right. Which is what sucks about it, is the people have no stomach for it, because, and this is the real problem. And it's the kind of unknown variable, is we are awake on these things for whatever reason. Someone woke us up, or you just noticed it. You're smart enough to pattern recognize. But most people aren't doing that. And what it is going to take is getting raped, is getting their grandma's head smashed in by an 18-year-old black kid who did it for fun. You know what I mean? It's going to take these horrible things. But the question is, will that be happening enough for people en masse to wake up? And even if it was most white people, by the time that happened, would it be too late? That's kind of the unknown variables and equations to this whole thing.
Yeah. And I actually wrote an article, like first one I've ever written, just because I have the ability to on X. I don't know when they put that forward, because I wanted to just back Nick up on this, because I'd been thinking for the longest moment, like, this was potentially on the table, this disappearing, and this like the timeliness of it as well. And a lot of it, again, I chalk up to just this, like, people live in this delusion. There's so many. And people don't like hearing this, but it's like, I can't stand hearing any talk about anything that's like physical. I'm surrounded by dudes who all say that, but they can't even stop themselves from putting donuts in their mouth hole. It's like, I'm so, like, it makes me so angry, because it's just that's not the solution moving forward. And you can disagree with me, that's fine. I just, like, I guess someone needs to marry to me the idea of all of these, obese do-nothings, and how we're going to, like, overthrow. Like, how are we going to do it? I do agree, though. I think there is a chance, though, in terms of the experience of an American, a worsened America, right, with the immigration getting out of hand, and people finally experiencing that. But I think at that point, though, and if we're at like 48%, white majority, or not even that, it's like a 48%, white country. I mean, what do you do then? I think the cards begin to fall out of our hands. I think it begins to make us actually a target, right? I think this is actually now where it's gone so far that then you have to actually really think about the strategic elements of, like, what you're doing with the nativist push. And it's the same thing too. Like, again, completely for it. I've been pro-white the entire time. I've taken shit for it by a million people, from people in my own family. But it's the same disingenuous thing, right? They'll take Nick's word at something they really hate, like they disagree with him on. But, like, when he says, like, like he says something to the effect of, I wish it wasn't, they don't take him at his word. It's whatnot. I guess, again, this plays in. Go ahead, my bad.
No, I was just gonna say, like your teacher said, don't complain unless you have a solution. Kind of in the same way, and this is something that Nick talks about that Zeb highly disagrees on, and I'm not here to put words in Zeb's mouth, but it is what he has said, where Zeb has said before, we can't beat the Jews at their own game because it's not in our nature. And I think he's right. He's right that it's not in our nature, but I think there's a difference between, playing the game, so to speak. And so I'm kind of being flippant here when I say this, but doing things like about turning minority groups against each other, because the narrative is anti-white and you're never going to change that. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is black people don't like Indians. I mean, really nobody does, but yeah. I mean, so, you ever see these homeless people pranks where they, like, give them Hennessy and make them do, like, skits and push-ups and stuff?
Yeah.
Grab all your local homeless people, take them to Indian neighborhoods and drop them off. And crazy shit will ensue.
I don't know. I guess I also think of that too at the same time. Like, conservatives already did a little bit of that, right? how many like, you know, right wing commentators came over, like people like Xavier DeRusso and like Bryson, Bryson Gray, like how many like, you know, Blacksit, right? Candace Owens. Seemingly like it's not enough, right? I think even with all of these kind of token black individuals, you still are barely, what are we pulling at like 15% or something for the black community?
Oh no. I'm not talking about bringing the black people over to our side. That doesn't work.
Right.
That doesn't work.
What I'm saying is the Uncle Tom. That's what I'm saying. People naturally oppose Myron because they think he's Uncle Tom. Same way they think about Candace Owens and, you know, insert any typical kind of like conservative, like right winger. It's like I don't even know if that's still like how effective is that, I guess.
That's kind of what I'm getting at is it's like the Jews, you know, they amplified all this rhetoric about you know, like slavery and everything. You know, like they got the civil rights thing all amped up, which is why we have all these. The truth is race conflict. That's not something the Jews created. They stoked the flames of it, but that is something that is natural and inherent in all of us. And what I'm saying is I'm not talking about political commentary. I'm talking about like put Section 8 if you're going to put Section 8 housing somewhere, put it in an Indian neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like quit putting the black people in white neighborhoods, put them in Mexican neighborhoods and see how long that lasts. Because the fact of the matter is yes, you can get a Mexican guy and a black dude to sit around a campfire and bitch about white people. Sure.
Right.
But you put a Hispanic neighborhood next to a black neighborhood, that's not going to last long either. And that's my point is it's like they were used as bioweapons. Maybe we need to start thinking that way.
And
I am being a little flippant though.
I'm going to pull this chat up here because this is kind of like where I'm at with it too. Like, I think we need to seriously have like a rethink of like the priorities, you know, what needs to be pushed. Someone put in the chat earlier as well. I agree with this too. I think this idea that we can all agree on what's bad, but like nobody can agree on like what to move forward and somehow like we're going to get in and win with that. And then we'll just decide it later on. I think that idea is dead too. I think there needs to be stronger pro principles, pro things that we are like in the positive that we agree upon. And I think that maybe that does come down to like maybe someone's got to win between the Protestants, Orthodox, and Catholics. Like, and I hate even saying things like that, but it's just like, what would it take to be a little bit more unified on something like that? Not unifying with like, you know, retarded leftism, but unifying on principles that are a bit more palatable. But that's kind of like, that defines the dissident right. It's like, well, you can agree with Nick on this, and 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 this. But because the way he talked about Fishbach one time, now you think he's a Civnat, and now you're watching Steven Crowder. And it just like, that's the kind of stuff that I don't understand. And I think it's crazy that Asmongold has an even better kind of political acumen than a lot of people with this, which is like, that's part of the political strategy. And it's the idea of like, dude, you realize what we were trying to do was like having a big tent with like Charlie Kirk and all of these gay Republicans and like blacks. It's like, we can do a big tent with like, between the white first and the Christ first group. Like that would be a decent coalition, but all these people do is they just want to fight with each other constantly because it's more, to a lot of them, it's more about being right than it is about being than winning. And I think even a lot of that, I don't think are right either. I'll grab one of these. It's from JR. He says, Atlas, do you think the GOP is betting on paper citizens to be their new constituency after many whites become apathetic to voting? Completely. I mean, I think this is part of the reason why you're seeing Byron Donalds being ran, because part of the reason why you're seeing Vivek being ran. Think about who the opposition is in a lot of those races too. It's like the Democrats are running a lot of like white people too. It's kind of crazy. And Republicans in many places are running like these token candidates. And I think that's going to be part of it. I think this voting for immigrants. I think you already saw that with business owners too. I think that's where a lot of the big poll was the whispers coming in from the Chamber of Commerce of like, don't go to Home Depot, don't check in my field. And I think they're going to appeal to that. And I think they're going to do what they have to win election. I think that's the thing for politicians is politicians want to win elections. This idea I think that people have that like, politicians want change. They want to win elections.
Do you think there's any validity before we move on?
Yeah.
to doing something along the lines of like getting a candidate who's kind of an out of nowhere type person and having them run basically not a completely fake campaign, but like they're hiding their power level within the campaign to win the Democrat primary in a highly Democrat place, and then basically be a Nazi once they win as a Democrat, like governor or something like that. Now, I know I'm not getting into the specific strategy, and there's a lot of unknown variables, but that has been something I've been thinking about lately. I mean, Zeb had talked about that before, but he was talking about like basically running as a conservative in a Democrat race. Now, obviously, you're going to get them because the idea is that the mindless Democrat drones will just vote Democrat, but
Right.
the problem is breaking through the primary.
My answer is like I can't see it, and here's why. I'll lay out a couple of things for you. So think about the fact that we have Republicans running under Republican tickets as Republicans, and they're still being doubted and castigated and are suspicious and are, second guessing here and there. Are we going to see the same support for Fishbach if he's running as a Democrat? I don't think so at all. Like I completely doubt it. And then like this turnaround. And the thing is part of this too is it's like I don't like, and more so this idea of hiding your power level, I don't think works as a political, like as a actual like politico. Like if you're running for office. And part of this is like, so let's take a look at Kai Schwimmer, for example. This is somebody who, and maybe people might not know this, but I guess we'll rope you in a little bit. This is someone who kind of was streaming on, what was it, Cozy TV, was very closely linked, with Nick, but recently had a moment where he kind of came out and said, he disavows anti-Semitism, and he said he's not a Groyper. And so a lot of people in the movement didn't like that. But think about from the perspective of what if he thought he was taking Nick's advice and he's hiding his power level? Well, now what has this done to him? Now everybody finds him suspect. And now the paranoia starts. And now everybody's going to second guess it. They won't believe it, and he won't be able to maintain support. So this idea that you're going to be able to also hide your power level and then run as a Democrat, to me, is just like, I can't see it. And I just don't think you're going to be able to garner support for things like that. And the same is true because they're going to have to walk a fine line. Because if they hide their power level to a certain degree, no one's going to really even buy the fact that they're hiding their power level. And on the other side, if they try to give hints that they're not hiding the power level, you also have to maintain that the natural base of the Democrats will sniff them out the moment that he crosses a line too close to being a racist or anti-Semitic or anything along those lines. They get snuffed out. So that idea to me as a politico running like that, I cannot see it, especially given the nature of the races we're in right now. I mean, if you were asking me, I look at somebody like a Fishbach and you go like, well, how much better could you run a campaign? And he's still being doubted. So this idea that you're going to flip the gears, he's going to switch over to a Democrat and like he's just going to spring out as like this nationalist. I can't. I'm telling you, I can't see it. I cannot see a path for it at all. But maybe you can. Maybe you can see one.
Yeah, I'm being a little, because like I'm not accusing you of straw manning my argument, because basically how you summarized it is how I presented it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really my point is I do agree with you. I get the.
Well, you theorize it. You play it up. Steelman it. Steelman your argument then.
So getting someone who's running on more so fixing it's hard for me to come up with specifics because I don't have a specific race in mind, like a specific state or what kind of office they're running for. And you're not going to get to the presidency without winning other elections before. So clearly they'd have to
like
not
a governor
have
race.
sprung for. Yeah, I would say like if you were running for governor, if you could get your money behind someone like, okay, so I'll use it's not the best example because it's not a Democrat race, but like South Carolina, for example, to depose, let's say Senator Lindsey Graham. Someone wants to depose Senator Lindsey Graham. Run on, like full support for Donald Trump, highlighting someone with a fresh record that doesn't, you can't really pin anything bad against them because they don't really have a record at all. Whereas Lindsey Graham has this 30-year-long record. They call him Lindsey Grahamnesty for granting amnesty to illegals.
Yeah.
And so run against your candidate. That's really what I'm getting at. Like, if it were two, like this idea wouldn't work if it were two newcomers. I'm talking about deposing the boomers that are kind of in there. Beat Lindsey Graham by making the debate about how bad Lindsey is.
Yeah.
And when, of course they're going to try, like, someone like you or me or Zeb couldn't do it because of all our tweets. You got to get someone
Right.
who my point is maybe it's not someone who's running as hard as Fishbach, but someone like Fishbach who's running on beating like a Lindsey Graham type.
Yeah.
And then they get in and they reveal their Fishbachness.
Their Fishbachness. That's funny.
Now, obviously, I don't know if I would even do that method in a senator's race, because senator, that's like, it's a shorter term. How much can you really do with that? I think the governor and the presidency are the main ones, but like I said before, the presidency, you can't really get that far without having a record. So I think that something like a governor's race is much more viable for something like this.
So this would be, I guess if I was to respond with that, I would take that scenario out of a vacuum. Meaning,
sure,
I think what's going to be on the table moving forward for a lot of elections is it's going to be very economic based. And why is that? Well, if the war continues at the pace that it is, and we're going to experience this kind of supply shock, right? The Persian Gulf countries have already, like, this is an estimate from the IEA, right? They're down to like, typically there's like 23 million barrels of oil per day. They're down to like 13. That was reported by IEA, and that's like almost the equivalent of like nuking Saudi Arabia off the map, off the face of the earth. And they are the biggest producer of that. And so I think moving from 27 to 28, we're going to be looking at a lot more of economic policy compared to where we were at previously. And I think there's two things that are going to surmise that. One, the Iran war and the fallout of that. Food prices are going up, supply chain getting shocked, oil and energy infrastructure being blown out of the water. And we're not even done yet. So we don't know how bad the consequences may be and how much they're going to reflect and how long-term they might be. This is part of the reason why, again, the United States didn't bomb the oil infrastructure of Karg Island, because this would have rope in China. Because they would be setting back, China by multiple periods of years. And now you're entertaining World War III things. The other thing with this too is, what's the other main economic factor happening in all of the workplace? It's this continuing innovation of AI, people being laid off. If there's like the monthly report, the job market has been shrinking. I think we've lost more jobs under Trump than what we've gained. I wouldn't know that off the top of my head, but I know it's not been good. And so the idea here is that we're getting very close to an AI innovation may all of a sudden, 1 million jobs just poof, gone. Now I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but that's could be on the table. Now I know some people say AI can't do this and etc. I'm not saying it's going to just immediately come in and swoop over, but it will come in phases. And all it's really going to take is a Henry Ford-like advancement in AI in some kind of manufacturing or industry. The next thing you know, it will be the first domino to fall. And I think if you just even have, 40, anywhere from like, increased percent of like 3 to 5% of unemployment based on AI, I think that will place a lot of strain on things. Now I think if you're looking at 28, it's going to be very economic based. That's why I think for the Democrat to run as like a nationalist, it's just not even going to be the political climate for that. I think we're going to be looking at, and I think I've been talking about this too, I think this is going to be where people like Andrew Yang step back into the fold. You're going to see people who are much more of like the economic savants talking about how they can fix the economy in the, after in the consequences and the ashes of the Iran war. And hopefully it's done by then, but who knows? Maybe if we may still have to entertain the possibility that there's a war still ongoing by then. I would hope not. That seems kind of out, a little ridiculous, but they didn't call them forever wars for nothing. So I'm kind of thinking if I was to put a bit more, if I was to remove the X and Y and put actual variables in there, to me, in the national, I don't really see it, but in the governorship, I also don't see it, because I think in the governorship is where it gets specific. So for example, like if, say in Ohio, there's some kind of major company that operates all over Ohio, and they have some huge AI advancement, and now all of a sudden Ohio suffers like 110,000 job loss. over a couple of months. Now the candidate for governor is going to be a lot more inclined to platform something that's economically appeasing for the base. So I think that we're going to be getting away from things like nationalism and such. I don't want it to be like that, but I think just given the nature of where we're going, if we have $9 gas, I think people will be much less concerned about the Indians in their neighborhood than they will be like the fact they can't even go to work, things like that. But I could be wrong about that. That'd just be my kind of thoughts back to you on the whole Democrat nationalist thing.
No, I think you're right. I'm kind of like, my hypothetical is happening in a vacuum. And like I said, there's just too many variables to consider that would go into the viability of it.
Right.
But yeah, I actually, it is kind of blackpilling, because I think you're completely right on that. Now that I think about it, how with just how bad the economy is, there's no way Trump's going to be able to bring us back to where we were at the beginning of his second term, let alone anywhere beyond that. I think, oh man, I'm holding back a sneeze here. The
I could tell.
the economy is that's going to be a main thing. And
Yeah.
I wonder what the left's angle will be. I mean, maybe they'll just run on Trump screwed it up and
Yeah.
the tariffs were bad, but like, how are they going to fix it? By taxing the rich?
Yeah. But I mean, this is the other thing too. I think
Whoever
that's an easier sell for them.
runs,
We're off the back of the Epstein files that never got investigated. You think people care about the rich at this point? The elites at all? The left might be fiending for it. Tax the rich by 50%. And so this is like part of what also is like the bad portion of Trump's presidency, which is like he has poisoned a lot of issues. Like he has poisoned immigration. He's poisoned the Epstein files. And it's just a lot of mishandling of this stuff that's also kind of played in, some thoughts behind these things.
Whoever runs on eating Larry and David Ellison on live television, I'm voting for them,
That's funny.
Whoever gets on that stage and says, if I win, I'm going to hunt down Larry and David Ellison, and I will eat my jaw will unhinge like a snake, and I will eat them on live TV.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see.
Which that's kind of another story that's kind of falling out of the wayside because of everything else going on. But yeah, the acquisition happening with this major consolidation happening in between right-wing media and as well as Warner Bros. Discovery and whatnot. But to bring it back to the Iran war, I guess that's kind of like the operant thing happening here. Everything else is kind of based on like what's going to happen, where's this going to go. Here's Nick kind of giving his idea because he thinks one of two things will happen with this Iran war. One of two directions here. So here's that clip.
I think that one of two things happens. One, you get a false flag. You get an Iranian sleeper cell that does an unbelievable terrorist attack and hundreds or thousands die. It's a mass casualty event. And that galvanizes the American public and the Europeans and maybe even the Gulf countries to actually invade Iran. And we're in a multi-year war. That's option number one. And that's how you get your regime change. Option number two, they don't give up on regime change. That's not in the cards. But what they might do is a temporary truce, a temporary ceasefire. We replenish our ammunition. We replenish our munitions, stockpiles, weapon systems. Maybe we involve other coalition partners, whether that's the Kurds or the Gulf or the Europeans or somebody else. We get a new coalition together, and then we sow the seeds on the ground for a revolution. CIA, Mossad is active in the country. They're getting anti-government forces organized and mobilized. And then in 2027, you get the once and for all regime change operation. We try it again. I think those are the only two options. I think regime change is inevitable. I think that ultimately Iran is going to go. That's what Israel wants. What Israel wants, Israel gets. And unless some kind of black swan event occurs, unless something very strange happens, it seems that we are on an inexorable trajectory towards an Iranian regime change. It's just a question of what the timeline is. Will we get it now or will we get it later? Will we get a ground war with American forces hastily put together in order to save face, not to back down, and we get the regime change now, and we're now in a multi-year conflict? Or do we wind it down, we get some space to breathe, chance to catch our breath, and then we go back in a year after we've made additional preparations and maybe we get a better opportunity?
So in my head, as he was saying this, I would have, so I'm kind of like just thinking about it in general. And one of my first thoughts was, what would help them the most in the midterms would be if they could negotiate a ceasefire and then resume back in like 2027, right? Once they kind of like let it pass over the midterms, not have that hanging over their head while it's going on. The only thing is if you've been paying attention to the way that these negotiations have been going, I mean, they basically rug pulled Iran multiple times. You know, we came out and even, you know, I can't remember who it was on our side from America, the government that came out and basically said, yeah, we lied to him. We were just trying to buy time for certain things. Even part of
Trump.
it was it Trump himself who said that? And then it was like the some of the officials from the UAE, I believe, came out and said that they were helping. Like they kept coming to Iran like, no, the US is serious this time. They're definitely serious this time. And they were like trying to help the United States to keep Iran in these negotiations. I just don't see it on the table anymore. I really don't. If you were asking me, you know, the Supreme Leader's gone. I mean, I still don't think we have yet to see Motaba Kamani yet. I know there was, you know, public statements, and I think they used a cardboard cutout at one point. I don't think he has been visibly seen since the strike. But you're talking about a guy whose father, wife, and children were all killed in a strike. And I think the report I saw was like he lost his leg. That person's going to come and ask for a ceasefire. I really don't think so. I think Iran at this point, being regionally separated and decentralized now, I think we are getting ready to see what will the next step of escalation be. And I think it was even reported earlier today. No, I didn't do too much digging into it, but I think it was from Bricks News reported that there was, you know, both the United States and Iran rejected negotiations. And so it's kind of curious, where is this going to go? And I think Nick is kind of spot on with this kind of attempt on Karg Island. And I think we may see that. We may see an extreme kind of frontal assault. 2,500 Marines have already been deployed, matched by 2,500 Navy sailors as well, too. You may see some kind of extreme shock and awe on one of the shores to get American, you know, military equipment up onto a shore to begin holding things down. But again, I'm not much of a military strategist. I just think the bigger point here is I think ceasefire is off the table because I don't think Iran will be coming to the table. But your thoughts?
No, you're 100. They're not coming to the table, dude. And I was of the mind that, like, basically before June 2025, when they bombed Isfahan and all the nuclear enrichment sites, I genuinely believe that a lot of the Iranian leadership at that time was negotiating in good faith. But and you'd recall this, all of the people in, I don't know what you would call it, the administration, I guess, you know, like the people at the top that were kind of on the side of let's sue for peace, Israel killed. That was, I can't remember any of these sand names, but like the guy who they killed, who was in, what was it, like Turkey? He was in the Syrian embassy. They killed him.
Yeah.
The Iranian was, he was in the Iranian embassy in Syria, I believe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Which is, of course, internationally a big no-no. But, you know, I mean, when Hamas comes in on jet skis and stuff, you know, well, that's the worst thing ever. And these are war crimes or something like that. So right. That the only way Iran is going to try and sue for peace with the United States at any point in time in the future is if enough time passes and probably the son of Khamenei probably dies himself or is succeeded by somebody else who was maybe not directly a part of the family. Yeah. Enough time passes where the tensions kind of ease, and then whoever is negotiating in that time basically is just full frontal denouncing both Israel and the Trump administration, but that might be 20 years out.
Right.
And who knows where we will not be in the same situation. So who knows if Iran will even exist in 20 years as we understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And, you know, it's hard not to, you know, knowing the history of the relationship between Iran, Israel, the Greater Israel Project, and the United States. despite what you think of Muslims, it is hard not to feel bad for what's going on in Iran. And even more so when you see like the actual the news clips come out and you see the people holding up all the signs of Khamenei, and it's like, dude, where's the protesters, right? Where's the liberal Iranians who like want their democracy? It's like non-existent, just such BS. Mr. Mossi says, Iran has something planned for ground troops. Yeah, wasn't it Abbas Aragachi said it himself to Tom Lamas on, it was like ABC News. He was like, yeah, we're just we're waiting for the U.S. troops at this point. Like, we're ready. We're waiting for when you guys show up. Jared Williams says, do you think these GCC countries will reach a breaking point and defy the United States and say you can't launch your rockets from our country anymore? Well, here's the thing. They already were oppositional to this before it even started. They informed Washington before we even initiated the strike that we can't use their airspace for strikes. And this is why the concentration of the troops is on these USS carriers. It's why Erbil Air Base is being obliterated, because that's where we are able to launch some operations from. They're in Iraqi Kurdistan. And it clearly has made things a bit more complex. It eliminates the areas and your ability and mobility to, be around in different spots. And these were things that the Pentagon's top military advisor was warning Trump about. And that leaks into the next comment here, which Cooper says, Nick knows nothing about military operations. I would disagree with that. He says, between Obama and now, you think America wasn't building better and more bombs? This is America. We don't run out of ammunition. This is just what happens when you listen to Fox News too much. Part of the reason what Daniel Keynes was warning, and part of the Pentagon warning too, but largely, what they call him, Raising Keynes, Mr. Dan Keynes, was warning against was a lot of these things that would complicate the war. And one of the things that he had put forward was talking about this munition disparity, right? This is what we're experiencing right now. Iranian ballistic missiles, they're one-way drones, and the fact that we got to shoot up $3 to $12 million, depending on what missile defense system we're using, compared to their 20 to 50K drones. And what was he reporting? He was talking about how we may have to ultimately decide what's more important to protect, talking about having to move missile systems, or Ukraine won't be able to buy as many Patriot missile system defense from us because we're going to have to make sure that we have enough to bring in and supply for the current ongoing war. And what's happening right now? I think we moved 6 THAAD missile systems out of the Korean area and got them shipped over to the Middle East. We're having to divest a U.S. Army drone equipment and specialists from Ukraine. I think it was 10,000 drones were sent over, as well as a team of drone specialists. I mean, it's clear that we are already suffering on the munitions end. And I think, to quote Trump, it's something to the effect of like low grade and medium grade weaponry we're completely fine on, but it is the high grade weaponry that we do not have. And so it's this high grade weaponry that we just unfortunately are in the middle of figuring out what are we going to do about this. And I think there was, to further effect, I can't remember her name, was Mackenzie something. She also talked about how it takes anywhere from like 1 to 3 years, depending on what, which system it is, to replace that. And I mean, we're sending, what was it, the fire rate? Nick said that there was one report he had read where it was like a 20% interception rate, meaning we're firing 5 missed interceptors for one drone. And that even exacerbates the disparity. Now it's like $60 million versus 20,000 or 50,000. It's like, you can't keep up on stuff like that. And that's the reason why Iran hasn't given up yet. That's the reason why Iran is continuing going. And part of this goes in the line with the fact that Iran didn't look at the Greater Israel Project and go, wow, that's a crazy conspiracy theory. Clearly Netanyahu doesn't want to own everything. No, they took it for real because they know it's for real. And so they've built their entire defense capabilities underground for the pure idea that at one point they were going to have to take on a strike force from both the United States and Israel. So they prepared in the fact that there was only so much effectiveness you'll get by bombing the absolute life out of the surface. This is part of the reason why the B-2 bunker buster was ultimately like a non-success. You could say it really wasn't a failure, but it wasn't much of a success either because we couldn't determine if we'd actually really done anything to it, which is why we're here later on. And that's part of the difference of the strategic objectives of both the United States and Israel. The United States is there for the non-proliferation of the nuclear weapons, where Israel is here because they want to have hegemony over the region. 2 different things, but one of them wags the other. You can be offended as much as you want. I literally don't care, but these things, these ideas, we need to be grounded in reality, right? There's almost like zero point in talking about anything if we're just going to bring up, nonsense and delusion. But any more thoughts, Josh?
Dude, And I'm not throwing shade at Zeb here, being that he's in the military, but like I can't tell you how many people that were, they mopped the floors for on an Air Force base coming out of the woodwork to say, "I'm sick and tired of these civvies lecturing me on military operations. You don't know shit. I was over there, man." And it's like, bro, you went for 2 years to get a scholarship. Like, chill. And this idea, it's like, okay, yeah, the U.S. is running out of ammunition. That's just completely beyond the pale. And you said it. It's like the cheap and mid-range munitions, no, but $1 million interceptors, yes, which is what is going on right now.
Right.
Maybe 2 aircraft carriers can defend themselves from unlimited, and not even unlimited like drones, but like all the fuel costs of everything, of escorting a tanker from one side of the Gulf to the other, the strait to the other.
Right.
It's not realistic. Yeah, maybe we're holding back a little bit, but therefore, because we're holding back a little bit doesn't mean therefore we can do anything we want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the idea here is like not that like Iran would ever win, right? Iran's winning condition is that we stop. That's like Iran's winning condition, is that they continue to survive as a nation in the whatever weakened state that they're in. The United States could just nuke the effing life out of them and win. I mean, like it's no one's ever sitting here saying like the United States has no ability to win. It's the fact of you begin to start losing, though, the more that you begin to escalating in aggression that's not matching. For one, it's not, if you're starting to break all of these international laws, which I think are nonsense anyways, but they mean something to somebody. But also, it's like it will also forever, for one, just on the domestic side, if Trump drops a nuke or we get boots on the ground in any kind of huge way, I mean, it just has made the entire Republican Party toxic. I mean, it's going to be a huge kind of betrayal and backstab there. But it's the point being, though, is in the current form of warfare, we are going to have to escalate, because at a certain point, I mean, like, is the idea we're going to take every interceptor we have from where we're stationed at in places like in Alaska, we're going to take them everywhere. We're going to move every single missile system out of the United States. Like, it's just not going to happen. There's going to come a certain point where the munitions get too low, where they're going to say, we have to there's got to be a new strategy here. Either boots on the ground, we change weaponry, we fire with different rounds. Like, it'll just have to change, but that will more than likely be in the form of an escalation. And I think from there you start entertaining different things. And think about it from this perspective too. Like the Karg Island thing, I think, is huge. If they was already attacked, who's to stop some other country jumping in and then they bomb Iran's oil infrastructure, and then China gets roped in, and it can. There's so many things that can begin to occur from this. It's just the idea here overall as well, though, as we wish it just wasn't happening. But go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I was excuse me. I was gonna say, like, this was we overestimated on all sides, including Israel. I mean, now Hezbollah's back and they're being bombed from Lebanon now. Like they underestimated this, and now it's one of those places where the Gulf states, they're between a rock and a hard place on this one. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were hedging, because and it's basically like, as much as I hate, like, as much as I want the Jewish occupation of our government to fail, the world is watching this conflict with bated breath. I mean, China and Russia have foam coming out of their mouth, especially,
right.
With Iran say, hey, we'll let you go through if you pay with Chinese dollars.
Yeah.
Like this always was going to be, as we and Nick Fuentes have been saying, a lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
If we beat Iran and, somehow we're able to like get a new regime in there, we've lost. But now we're not even getting that. We're kicking the can down the road once again, letting the grass grow. And, we cut the grass, and now we're, heading towards an economic crisis, and we just lost to a third world like country.
Well, it can't be missed. You brought it up there, right? Both Italy and France were negotiating on individual terms with Iran to be able to let their ships go across, and like that can't be missed. This is like the pressure element inside of there, which is you already have countries like that are allied with us, but they weren't. They were hesitant and they were against the aggression. They were against the war, and so that's putting them in positions which is like, how much do we want to support the United States if our country is going to be suffering extreme loss? Like they want the Strait of Hormuz opened up quickly too. And so to them, you get pressures from both the nations in the UN there in Europe. You're also getting pressure from the Gulf countries. I think the Gulf countries are the ones that are exerting the most pressure. And I think that's part of the reason why they were striking the airports both in Bahrain and Dubai. Because what is the number one export that they sell? They sell extravagant lifestyle. You can come here and be a billionaire and like, this is the nice side of Persia. This is tropical. This is the tropical area you want to be in and spend your money and dump it out. Which is again why Andrew Tate was like on day 2, like, hey guys, I'm in Dubai right now, and like there's not even a war here, and it's like, yeah, okay, that's great, and their oil production slowing down. So there's a lot of variables here on the table, and I think for the most part, a lot of people who would kind of tell you, this is kind of what's funny too. A lot of these super chats are asking Nick like, what do you think is going to happen in like 2 years from now, like, or 3 years now? And he's like, I can't predict the future. And that's kind of where we are right now, which is there's almost too many unknowns that it's going to be hard to really see anything beyond the next 24 to 48 hours of the ongoing events. And so I think the hope really is to hope that there's not any kind of major development that has any kind of extreme negative conflict or consequences upon us. I think that's kind of what every American's hoping for. Best case scenario is we don't suffer long term, that it is some kind of short hiccup and gas eventually resumes prices. But even on gas prices, we're getting reports, I think it was from like the UN, said like, don't expect gas to normalize until the middle of 2027. And so if you think about that, it's like, if just a week or two of conflict has led to gas being expensive into next year, well, imagine if you add on two more weeks to that. Well, now what if it's 3 months? Now what if it's 6 months? And so there's all these things that again will have to be interacted with and engaged with as we come along with them. Because again, it's not like you or I can Thanos snap and it's over. It's just simply just not the way it works. You got to be pragmatic about it.
I told Zeb when I was on his show Friday, if gas gets to $4, I am going to my local synagogue with a hose and a gas can. And you can call me the gas vampire because that's my gas as far as I'm concerned. Going to the Jewish faith.
I was waiting for it to be so much worse.
No, I knew as soon as I said I'm going to my local synagogue, the feds were like, huh?
Yeah.
I'm rapping to fill in.
Someone's
a Jew.
Knocking at my door.
I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew. Hello? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
There's
right.
not.
What was that? What's happening? That's like a loud wind out there. No, it's the FBI.
Yeah, I hear it sounds like someone's flying a drone outside.
Yeah, and this is part of the reason that we have to be very, 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 very precise and meticulous and calculated and surgical about the way that we move forward. I mean, like we've lost so much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like we have for a lot of us, our backs are against the wall, and it certainly feels that way. So I think now would be the time to incur some thinking and critical thinking about what the next steps are. But I will end on this just to piss off everybody else who's not completely aligned with Nick. If you don't vote Democrat, you are a disloyal pussy. Here we go.
$20. I promised myself that I would never vote for a Democrat, but you made a great case. Me and all my niggas voting Democrat in 2026. Anyone who doesn't is a pussy who isn't willing to do whatever it takes to win. Also
That's
a huge sign of
true.
disloyalty. Is Faith Merrill Arab or Indian?
That's so true. If you don't vote Democrat, you are disloyal and a pussy. You are a disloyal pussy. I have seen what people do that will not vote Democrat, and it disgusts me. And it disgusts me. People don't vote Democrat. They do somersaults on Israel's dick. Vote Democrat or else fuck you. I'm voting Democrat in the House. If you don't do it, it is personally disloyal to the leader, which is me, and I no longer respect you. Vote Democrat. You have to do it.
There are no excuses. I'm withholding my vote. No, we're voting to punish them. We are voting to punish them. A vote for a Democrat is a vote to punish the GOP. I'm voting to drop a hammer on
So
them.
Nata sent $20.
Yep. There we go. There we go. See how there I knew it'd make somebody mad. Yeah. Keep doing it. Keep going
What are they
back.
saying?
Keep going back to the well. We're going to make things better by completely making things worse. Okay. Wow, I got better under Trump, dude. You're so right, dude. You're so right. Dude, I wanted war with Iran. That's what I voted for. I also voted for transgender surgery with parental consent. I also, dude, it's just like, okay, dude, I give up. There's certain people who are just lost, man, and I don't really know what to tell you anymore. If you can keep getting, you can keep getting the boot shoved down your throat like this. If you want to listen, like I just want to be able to put my hand around my brother and be like, dude, you can get off your knees, dog. You deserve better than this. Like, but again, I'm not even trying to be rude, but it's like I can't even put myself in that mode of thinking. I don't get it. I really don't. So be it, I guess. You know, I guess this is just where the disagreement is. You can go vote for Nancy Mace. That helps you, right? Like, that's who it's going to be. Nancy Mace versus Lindsey Graham. Woo! Like, all right, dude, go. Like, yeah, that's really going to knock the socks off of somebody in Carolina. Probably Nancy Mace herself and not by her husband. This is like peak, just like, I think this is what I meant earlier. Like, I think people are seriously, like, they have been browbeaten into this idea of what politics is. And we have to figure out how to unwind that. And I mean this seriously. I mean it in the most serious of senses. Is like, we have to begin unwinding back the damage, right? It's like we're all therapists, right? Tell me how Trump hurt you. Where did he hurt you at? Point to the doll where Trump hurt you, right? Like, we have to break out of this extremely binary thinking. And again, you have to understand too, from the entire space, whether it was Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh, Jeremy Boring, you can go Tim Pool, the entire crew there. You could go everybody at the Blaze, including John Doyle to Glenn Beck to Jack Posobiec to Human Events. You can go to the Charlie Kirk Show, from Andrew Colvett to what's his name, Blake Neff, or whatever that Tim Pool knockoff is. All these people are controlled. Every single one of them suck. Not a single one that I mentioned is an actual Christian nationalist. Some of them even may say so. But then again, this is one of the main themes here. Look how manipulated this space is. Look how utterly manipulated this entire space is. Nothing more base than voting Republican. Insanity. And it is, again, the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over and over and over again and expecting, man, this is the time. This will be the one Republican who won't disappoint me. You can keep going to that well, but I won't be there with you. Any final thoughts, Josh?
Absolutely, dude. It's one of those things where, like, and I would direct people who are genuinely interested, you know, if you can get the Nick archive, go back and try and find it. But at some point, he basically explains how a Kamala presidency would almost surely be, in the long run, more politically advantageous than the Trump second term. And this was said before Trump got us into war with Iran. It was basically predicted, yes, this is certainly happening. And if Kamala was in, we would either A, not get it, which is highly unlikely, or B, we would get it and the blame would be placed on her feet.
Right.
She, like, basically everything, the sentiment about the elections being legitimate would be thrown completely out the window. But Trump getting in has re-legitimized or legitimatized the election process. He's selling the war to the retarded MAGA base. It is objectively worse. And it's so funny. Like, you know, Leather Apron Club?
Yeah.
He has a video on this. He has a great video on why he's not even talking about specific races. He just explains the idea behind not voting. Not even voting, just not voting is a political strategy.
Right.
I sent it to somebody. I've sent it to multiple people. All of them, when I confronted them on it, they said they didn't finish the video. It's 11 minutes, by the way. And I go, why not? And they say, because he's talking about not voting. Dude,
Yeah. Well, here's a great
Can't
one.
even engage.
And Leather Apron Club is pretty good. He's I do like his videos a lot. But this is the point here. From Coop Cooper, he says nobody's gonna fix it, dude. You, me, this conversation, this chat, nobody's gonna fix it. Then like, why are you here, man? Like, why would you spend, if you thought that you're gonna spend your moments in misery? Like, are you like a masochist or something? Like what is I just don't understand this engagement. Like, mad that people say to vote Democrat, but also voting doesn't matter. Like, you have no principles, your morality's broken, you have been browbeaten by a lot of people who are just, quite frankly, just Jewish and are being paid to just lie to you. And I say this from the bottom of my heart. Like, if this is your mentality, then you need to leave space. A lot of people have their backs against the wall. We're fighting against mass demoralization. What people don't need is another doomer standing on top of them laughing because they're the ones who also, I'm sure you were pro Donald Trump in 2024, right? It's a joke, dude. And I mean this seriously. Like, this, it doesn't help the movement at all in the naysaying. Because if it's pointless, then like, yeah, what are you doing here? Go play Fortnite. Just go play with your kids. Go do literally anything but wasting your time here then, right? You know, we're not begging for viewership. Like, we're asking, like, we're trying to legitimately engage with ideas. And then if you think that, then, you know, unfortunately it sucks, you know. Wish you didn't think everything was all doom and gloom, and of course it obviously feels that way. But I don't know why you got to be a naysayer. What video game is the naysayer like? They're like, well, I really like the guy who stands in the middle of town square and says, oh, we're all fucking gonna die. That guy is like my favorite person. Like, dude, I don't mean this to just like really put a point or be offensive by any means, but it's just like, I think the way you're thinking is really broken. That's all I have to say.
I do. Fuck you.
Well, okay, well, that was Josh.
Everyone who thinks that it's hopeless is and that there's nothing that can be done about it is sure on like getting on their pedestal trying to make sure everyone feels the same way. If it's hopeless, then why do you care? They can't change it.
Right.
Why are you trying to take the hope away from them?
Right. Yeah. Right. I'd rather engage with a leftist, to be honest with you. At least they would go back and forth with ideas instead of just telling me that we're all going to die. But with that has been another edition of the Groyper Report. I believe we're on episode 16. I believe I got my numbers messed up because our outlines are misnumbered. But thanks, everybody. The one network not afraid to say Christ is King. Thank you for subscribing to the channel, Mr. Flash SXM. I think I said that right. Thank you greatly. And as always, Christ is King. Seek first the kingdom of God. Quite literally, nothing else is more important. That should be your number one priority. Seeking God. Oh, that means over parents. That means over wives. That means over children. That means over everything. It is the number one. It can't be replaced. And deport Cash Patel, deport Pam Bondi. At this point, impeach the entire administration. I don't even care if they end up in jail or thrown into an ocean. Who cares? And with that, guys, I just really hope that we can figure things out and move in the right direction. I know it doesn't feel good, but let's hope it gets better. Anything else you want to say, Josh? I
love you, smelly balls.
Yep. Love you, brother. Love everybody who's always typically in here. We appreciate you. Coop, hopefully that was, hopefully you can, you know, have a bit of optimism moving forward. White pill a little bit. But until next time, guys, take care.
Where do you stand politically? Give us your political ideology.
Okay, I can say anything I want.
Yeah, bro. Say where yeah.
I don't know, the day-to-day stuff. I'm like, yeah, more bullshit. Another white girl got stabbed to death. Of course she did. What do you expect? For my politics, I just watch America First with Nick Fuentes.
Okay.
I consider myself a Groyper. Sometimes I just wait to hear Nick's take to make sure I have the right take before I make videos, you know? So, yeah, I just go with what Nick says. I just defer all my political opinions to Nick Fuentes at this point. I'm America First. I wish that we had white Christian men running the country. It's unbelievable to me that we have a government that has a policy other than America First. How does that make any sense? We pay taxes, like, use our taxes to benefit the country that we live in.